The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of London's busiest courthouse. Judge Patricia Williams sat high in her wooden chair, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She wore her black robes like armor, protecting herself from the endless stream of traffic cases that filled her days. "Case number 47, called the clerk, his voice echoing in the room. A tall woman walked to the front of the courtroom. Her name was Jacqueline Thompson. She was around 35 years old with dark skin that glowed under the courtroom lights. Her braids were neatly tied back, and she wore a simple blue dress with black flats. She carried a worn leather bag that had seen better days. "Ms. Thompson," Judge Williams began without looking up from her papers, "you are charged with speeding and driving without a valid license. How do you plead?" "Not guilty, Your Honor," Jacqueline said, her voice calm and clear. The police officer stood up to give his report. His name was Officer Peters, and he had written many tickets that month. "On Tuesday afternoon, I clocked Ms. Thompson driving 55 miles per hour in a 30-mile zone. When I asked for her license, she said she left it at home." Judge Williams sighed and finally looked at Jacqueline. She saw what she expected to see, another working person trying to make excuses. Her court dealt with dozens of these cases every day. People always had stories. They always had reasons. "Ms. Thompson, I hear these explanations daily. Everyone is in a hurry. Everyone forgets their license. The law exists to keep our roads safe," Judge Williams said firmly. "Your Honor, if I could explain." Jacqueline tried to speak. "The evidence is clear," Judge Williams interrupted. She did not want to waste time. There were many more cases to handle that day. "You were speeding in a residential area where children play. You could not produce your license when asked. This shows a pattern of disregard for traffic laws." Jacqueline opened her mouth again, but Judge Williams had already made up her mind. She tapped her gavel on the desk. "I am fining you £1,000. You must also complete 20 hours of community service. The fine is due within 30 days. Court dismissed." Officer Peters smiled. He liked judges who moved cases quickly. The court clerk wrote down the judgment. Jacqueline stood frozen for a moment, her face showing disbelief. "But, Your Honor," she whispered. "Next case," Judge Williams called loudly. Jacqueline slowly turned and walked toward the exit. Her leather bag felt heavier with each step. £1,000 was nearly her mother's entire disability check for the month. Her mother needed that money for medicine. Other people in the courtroom watched her leave. Some felt sorry for her. Others were just glad their turn was over. The room was already calling the next defendant. Outside the courthouse, Jacqueline sat on a bench. She pulled out a notebook from her bag. Inside were pages of careful notes about court cases she had observed. She was not just any defendant. She had a PhD in criminal justice. For the past 2 months, she had been studying how judges handled traffic cases in London. She had seen this pattern before. Judges who decided cases too quickly. Judges who did not listen to full stories. But experiencing it herself felt different. It hurt more than she expected. A young lawyer named Thomas walked by. He had watched the whole case. "Are you okay, miss?" he asked kindly. "Just thinking," Jacqueline replied with a sad smile. "Judge Williams has been working here for 15 years. She likes to keep things moving," Thomas explained. "I noticed," Jacqueline said softly. As Thomas walked away, Jacqueline looked back at the courthouse building. Tomorrow she would return. But tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow she would wear her official badge. Tomorrow Judge Williams would learn who she really was. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky. Inside the courthouse, Judge Williams called for the next case. She had already forgotten about Jacqueline Thompson. For her, it was just another case in another busy day. She did not know that this particular case would change everything. The end. Sometimes our quick judgments reveal more about ourselves than about the people we judge. Tomorrow brings new chances to see clearly. 2 days later, the morning light filled Judge Williams' office. She sat at her large wooden desk reading official notices. Her black coffee steamed in its usual white mug. Today felt like any other workday until she spotted an important letter from the court administration. The letter announced a new program to study court efficiency. Expert observers would watch judges work to help improve the system. Judge Williams was chosen as one of 5 judges to participate. She felt proud. This showed the court valued her experience. At exactly 9 o'clock, a knock came at her office door. A woman in a business suit entered. Her name was Linda Brown, and she worked for the court administration office. "Good morning, Judge Williams. Thank you for joining this pilot program," Linda said with a professional smile. Behind Linda stood another person whom Judge Williams did not immediately notice. She was still organizing papers on her desk when Linda continued speaking. "I've brought our lead analyst to meet you. She has been studying traffic courts across London for 2 months. Her research will help us make better decisions faster." Judge Williams finally looked up. Her eyes met those of the person standing next to Linda. Her breath caught in her throat. It was her, the woman in the blue dress from 2 days ago. But now she wore a sharp gray business suit and carried an official government badge. "This is Dr. Jacqueline Thompson," Linda introduced. "She teaches law at the University of London and specializes in judicial behavior studies." The room suddenly felt very warm. Judge Williams stood up slowly, her mind racing. "Dr. Thompson? The same person she had fined without listening?" "Hello again, Judge Williams," Jacqueline said calmly, extending her hand. Judge Williams shook it, feeling her own hand tremble slightly. "Dr. Thompson, I didn't realize—" "Yes, Your Honor, we met on Tuesday," Jacqueline replied politely. Linda noticed the tension but did not understand its source. "Dr. Thompson has published research on how judges make decisions in traffic cases. Her work shows that listening more carefully can reduce repeat offenses by 40%. Judge Williams felt her face growing hot. She remembered how she had refused to let Jacqueline explain, how she had called the next case before finishing the conversation, how she had assumed so much about this educated professional based on appearance alone. "Would you like to see Dr. Thompson's preliminary findings?" Linda asked, pulling out a folder. "She's studied 20 judges so far, including 2 sessions in your courtroom." The word "studied" echoed in Judge Williams' mind. Jacqueline had been watching her, recording her behavior, analyzing her decisions. What had she observed? How many mistakes had been noted? Jacqueline reached into her briefcase and pulled out a notebook. Judge Williams recognized it immediately. The same worn leather notebook she had noticed in court 2 days ago. "I've observed interesting patterns," Jacqueline began professionally. "Many judges interrupt defendants after hearing only the basic facts. In your courtroom, the average speaking time for defendants is 37 seconds before the first interruption." Judge Williams sat down heavily in her chair. 37 seconds. That seemed impossibly short when said out loud. "Of course," Jacqueline continued, "this quick processing might reflect experience and efficiency. However, my research suggests that when defendants feel unheard, they are more likely to commit repeat offenses." The word "unheard" struck Judge Williams deeply. She stared at Jacqueline, trying to read her expression. Was there anger there? Resentment? Judgment? But Jacqueline's face remained professional and neutral. Linda checked her watch. "I'll let you two discuss the details. Dr. Thompson will observe your morning session. Judge Williams, thank you again for your cooperation." Linda left, closing the door quietly behind her. Suddenly, Judge Williams and Jacqueline were alone. The air felt thick with unspoken words. "I should have introduced myself properly on Tuesday," Jacqueline said first. "I was there as part of my research, but when I received the traffic ticket last week, I thought it would be interesting to experience the system as a regular citizen." "And what did you learn?" Judge Williams asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "That the view from the defendant's position offers valuable perspective," Jacqueline answered carefully. Judge Williams opened her mouth to apologize but stopped. Words felt inadequate. She had treated this accomplished woman dismissively, assuming she was just another time waster. Now Jacqueline held power over her reputation and potentially her career. "Shall we proceed to the courtroom, Your Honor?" Jacqueline asked, checking her watch. The morning docket begins in 15 minutes. Judge Williams nodded, gathering her robes. As they walked down the corridor together, she wondered how many other times she had failed to see the full person standing before her bench. How many other stories had she cut short? This day would be different. She would be watched, studied, analyzed. Perhaps, she thought with growing discomfort, it was time. The end, when we discover that someone we've judged is actually our teacher, our whole world shifts. Wisdom begins with recognizing what we don't know. That evening, Judge Williams sat in her study at home. The room was filled with law books and family photos. She stared at her computer screen, unable to focus on anything else. Her fingers typed, Dr. Jacqueline Thompson, into the search engine. The results shocked her. Jacqueline had written 3 books about fair courts and equal justice. She had taught at 2 famous universities. Her research papers had been read by thousands of judges around the world. This was no ordinary traffic offender. This was a respected expert who studied how judges like Patricia worked. The phone rang, breaking the silence. It was her friend Margaret, another judge she had known since law school. Hello, Patricia. I heard you met Dr. Thompson today. How did it go? Margaret asked. How did you know about that? Judge Williams replied with surprise. Jackie is my niece. She told me all about her research project. Funny coincidence that she gave her paper on speeding tickets right to you. Margaret chuckled. Judge Williams felt her stomach sink. Your niece? Margaret, I didn't know. I was so hard on her in court. What happened, Patricia? Judge Williams explained the whole story. How she had fined Jacqueline £1,000 without listening. How she had cut her off mid-sentence. How embarrassed she felt now. Margaret listened quietly. Jackie never told me about the ticket, but I know her well. She probably used it as a research opportunity. That makes it worse, Patricia groaned. I've been preaching about fair courts for 15 years, and I failed the test when it mattered. After the call ended, Judge Williams looked at herself in the mirror above her desk. Her gray hair seemed grayer, her wrinkles deeper. When had she become so impatient? When had efficiency become more important than justice? She remembered becoming a judge. Back then, she had promised to listen to every person's story. She had believed in second chances and understanding. Somewhere along the way, with hundreds of cases each month, she had lost that promise. The next morning felt different. Judge Williams arrived early at the courthouse. She found Jacqueline already in the observation area, organizing her notes. May I speak with you? Patricia asked softly. Jacqueline looked up from her papers. Of course, Your Honor. They walked to a quiet corner of the hallway. Patricia took a deep breath. I owe you an apology. What I did on Tuesday was wrong. I judged you without listening. I made assumptions based on appearance and circumstances. I failed as a judge. Jacqueline listened carefully. Her expression remained professional, but Patricia could see kindness in her eyes. Your Honor, Jacqueline began carefully. I've watched many judges in my research. You're not alone in this pattern. The system pushes for speed. We process so many cases that people become numbers. But that's exactly the problem, Patricia insisted. You weren't just a number. None of them are. How many stories have I missed because I was in a hurry? They walked to Patricia's office and sat down. For the first time, they talked as equals. Jacqueline explained her research findings. She showed pages of data about repeat offenders. Judges who listened more had better success rates. Cases resolved more completely when defendants felt heard. Look at this, Jacqueline said, pointing to a chart. When judges spend just 2 extra minutes per case, repeat violations drop by 30%. 2 minutes can change someone's life. Patricia studied the numbers. Each statistic represented real people. People with problems, excuses, emergencies. People like Jacqueline's mother, who needed that £1,000 for medicine. What was your story? Patricia asked quietly. On Tuesday, what were you trying to tell me? My car's speedometer was broken. I was taking my mother to a doctor's appointment. Her disability check was late, and she needed her medication. I was stressed, worried about missing her appointment time. My license was actually in my wallet, but I was so nervous I grabbed the wrong section. Patricia closed her eyes. Such a simple explanation. Such human circumstances. If she had taken 2 minutes to listen, everything would have been different. "Thank you for being honest with me," Jacqueline said. "Most judges never admit their mistakes. You're already ahead of many I've studied." As the morning light brightened the office, Patricia felt something shift inside her. Pride had been her weakness. Listening would be her strength. The courthouse would see a different Judge Williams starting today. "Shall we prepare for court?" Patricia asked. "I want to show you how 2 minutes can change everything." Jacqueline smiled for the first time since they met. "I'll take detailed notes." The end. The hardest person to face in the mirror is ourselves. But only by seeing clearly can we change what needs to be different. The next day arrived with autumn, rain tapping against the courthouse windows. Judge Williams entered her office carrying 2 cups of tea instead of her usual lone coffee. She had sent Jacqueline a message asking for a private meeting before court started. When Jacqueline arrived at 8 o'clock sharp, Patricia noticed she wore the same blue dress from the first day. Her notebook was clutched under her arm like a shield. "Please sit," Patricia said, offering the better chair by the window. "I made your tea the way my friend Margaret says you like it. Milk, no sugar." Jacqueline looked surprised but sat down carefully. She sipped the tea and her shoulders relaxed slightly. "Dr. Thompson, I want to start fresh," Patricia began. "Yesterday I shared my regrets with you. Today I hope you'll share something with me." "What would you like to know?" Jacqueline asked. "Everything you've observed. The good, the bad, especially the painful. I can't improve without understanding the damage I might have caused." For the next hour, Jacqueline opened her notebook and read aloud. She described patterns she had noticed in 2 months of observation. She talked about the man who was late to pay his rent because he waited 3 hours to explain his broken tail. Light. She mentioned the teenage driver who skipped school the next day because shame kept her home. "But I also saw kindness," Jacqueline added. "Judge Collins takes extra time with elderly drivers. Judge Park asks about language barriers. You're not the only one who can change." The tea grew cold as they spoke. Patricia learned that Jacqueline had studied 15 different judges. Some scored high on efficiency, but low on satisfaction. Others moved slowly, but created lasting positive outcomes. "Where did I rank?" Patricia asked directly. Jacqueline hesitated. "You were fastest, but had the highest return rate for repeat offenders." The words hit Patricia like ice water. Fast but ineffective. Efficient but failing. She had traded justice for speed. "My research isn't just about judges," Jacqueline continued. "It's about the entire system. Poor people suffer most when they're not heard. Traffic fines can spiral into bigger problems. Missed work, lost jobs, sometimes even homelessness." £1,000, Patricia whispered, remembering Jacqueline's. "Fine. Actually, I paid it already," Jacqueline said. "I needed to see how the system works from start to finish." The payment office had a 2-hour wait. Many people were choosing between fines and groceries. Shame washed over Patricia again. She had never visited the payment office, never imagined the struggles that happened after she banged her gavel. "Will you teach me?" Patricia asked. "Show me how to listen properly while still being efficient?" Jacqueline's face softened. "I plan to do that anyway. But yes, I'll help." They spent the remaining time before court session developing new techniques. Jacqueline suggested starting each case with an open question, giving defendants 60 seconds of uninterrupted speaking time, using eye contact to show respect. These small changes could transform each interaction. "One warning," Jacqueline said as they walked to the courtroom. "Change feels uncomfortable at first. You'll want to rush. Other judges might question your new approach. Stick with it anyway." Patricia nodded with determination. The first case of the day was a young man named David. He had been caught driving without insurance. Before she would have demanded a quick plea and moved on. Instead, Patricia looked directly at him. "David, please tell me what happened. Take your time." His story unfolded slowly. He had lost insurance coverage because his mother used his credit card for medicine. He was driving to his second job to earn money back when stopped. His voice cracked when he mentioned supporting 3 younger siblings. Patricia noted Jacqueline, watching from the observation area, pen moving rapidly across paper. Other lawyers in the courtroom shifted uncomfortably. This was taking too long. I understand your situation, Patricia said after David finished. I'm reducing the fine to £200 with a payment plan. I'm also giving you community service at the Legal Aid Center where you can learn about insurance assistance programs. David's eyes widened. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you so much. As he left, whispers rippled through the courtroom. Some thought Patricia was being soft. Others noticed how grateful David seemed. 7 more cases followed that morning. Each time Patricia fought the urge to rush, she asked questions. She waited for complete answers. She looked at faces instead of paperwork. The session ran over by 40 minutes, but something remarkable happened. No one complained about waiting. Defendants left looking relieved instead of angry. During the lunch break, Patricia found Jacqueline writing furiously in her notebook. What are you recording now? Patricia asked. Something unexpected, Jacqueline replied with a smile. Defendants are actually thanking the court officers. When was the last time that happened? Patricia laughed for the first time in days. Real. Change felt possible. The small moments of compassion create ripples that touch many lives. When we make space for stories, we make room for healing. 6 months passed like pages turning in a book. Spring arrived in London bringing flowers and changed attitudes. Judge Williams' courtroom had become the talk of the courthouse. Some lawyers called her methods too slow. Others praised her fairness. But the numbers told the real story. Every morning, Patricia arrived early to prepare. She learned each defendant's name before calling their case. Jacqueline had finished her observation period, but still visited twice a week to measure progress. The transformation spread beyond Patricia's courtroom. Young judges started copying her techniques. Even the older judges began asking questions like, "Did anything urgent lead to this violation?" instead of rushing through standard penalties. On a sunny Monday morning, Patricia handled the case of an elderly woman named Emma. Emma had been caught driving with expired registration. Instead of the usual fine, Patricia discovered Emma couldn't afford new glasses to read the renewal notice. "Mrs. Thompson," Patricia called afterward, "would you consider helping Mrs. Emma with her paperwork? I believe she needs assistance more than punishment." Jacqueline had already begun gathering her things. "Of course, Your Honor. I know an organization that provides free vision care." The courtroom observer, a new trainee named Michael, watched everything carefully. He would write about today's session in his report to the court administrator at lunchtime. Patricia found Jacqueline sitting in the courthouse cafeteria. They had fallen into the habit of discussing cases over simple meals. "I have something to show you," Jacqueline said, pulling out an official envelope. The court administration completed their analysis. Patricia felt nervous as Jacqueline spread the papers on the table. The research had taken 12 months total. Patricia's changes represented only the last 6 months of data. "Your courtroom now has the lowest repeat violation rate in London," Jacqueline read aloud. 35% decrease in repeat offenders. Community satisfaction increased by 60%. Payment compliance improved dramatically. Patricia stared at the numbers with disbelief. "How is that possible? I thought spending more time would make things worse." "Quality beats speed," Jacqueline explained. "When people feel heard, they take responsibility. When they understand you care about their situation, they work harder to follow rules." The cafeteria had grown quiet. Other judges and staff members were listening to their conversation. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked skeptical. That afternoon, the court held its annual efficiency review. Judge Williams was called to present her methods. 3 months ago, she would have feared this meeting. Today, she walked in confidently with Jacqueline by her side. "Judge Williams," began the head administrator, Mr. Harrison, "your processing time per case has increased by 60%, yet your overall effectiveness scores lead the district. Please explain." Patricia stood up straight. I learned that rushing justice is not justice at all. When we listen completely, we solve problems, instead of creating them. When we see people as individuals with circumstances, not numbers with violations, they respond with respect instead of resentment. Mr. Harrison nodded slowly. Dr. Thompson's research supports your claim. However, some judges worry about case backlogs. May I add something? Jacqueline asked politely. Please do, Mr. Harrison replied. My research showed that judges who rush create more repeat business. Judge Williams spends 3 extra minutes per case, but saves the court hours of time dealing with repeat offenders. Overall, her method saves resources. The room buzzed with discussion. Several judges raised their hands with questions. For the next hour, Patricia and Jacqueline explained their approach. They shared specific techniques and answered doubts. When the meeting ended, Patricia walked Jacqueline to her car. They had become friends during this journey of change. No longer was Jacqueline just the defendant Patricia had misjudged. I'll submit my final report next week, Jacqueline said. But I wanted to thank you first. Not every judge would have admitted mistakes and grown from them. I should thank you, Patricia replied warmly. You gave me back the reason I became a judge. I'd forgotten how to serve people properly. As they said goodbye, a young mother approached Patricia. She had been in court 2 months ago for a speeding ticket. Judge Williams, I wanted to tell you something. You helped me get into a safe driving course instead of paying a huge fine. I kept my job because I could still afford childcare. My daughter thanks you too. The woman walked away, leaving Patricia with tears in her eyes. Jacqueline squeezed her shoulder gently. This is why we do the hard work, Jacqueline said softly. The next morning, traffic court looked the same from outside, but inside, Patricia saw differently. Each person entering her courtroom carried a story worth hearing. Each case offered a chance to help instead of hurry. When the clerk called the first case, Patricia looked up with genuine interest. An older gentleman approached nervously. 6 months ago, she would have interrupted him. Today, she said, "Please take your time and tell me what happened." As he began to speak, sunlight streamed through the windows. It felt like a new beginning for justice. The end true change begins when we choose to see clearly, listen deeply, and act with compassion. One person's willingness to grow can transform an entire system.